Okay, welcome everybody to the Vocational Science of Freedom online law class. And this is class 3 of a 3-part series, and this will be covering the redemption of your estate. This will be how to use the status docs after you've got them filed and recorded onto the public record, how to do default judgments in a court of record using the status docs, how to go through binding arbitration, and how to work with others to protect our republic by correcting our status. The first class that we did, as far as the 3-part series was concerned, was called the Totality of Law. That class is finished and available for purchase. And the second class was the Ins and Outs of Court. That was the basic court process and overview. And that class is also finished and available for purchase. And now this will be part 3. And as most of you know, in my documents, they're kind of color coded. So the dark blue is the headings, red means pay attention, the light blue means pay more attention, and this goes throughout all of the documents that we'll be looking at today. I'll have some of them will also be color coded in the same way. And then purple usually means my side notes on a subject. So as long as everybody got the links to download all of the documents, I posted the link into the server. That's the mega link for the class. This mega link is all of the information that you need regarding the handbills, which are a descriptive 1 or 2 page, sometimes they're a little bit longer, layout of what each status doc does. Now, I have finished a class, and this was several months ago, I think it might have been even last year, that was an entire class, an all-day class like this, only for covering the status docs and the process of how you fill them out and so on and so forth. And I've decided that everyone who purchases the status docs, I'm going to give access to that class for free, because the whole entire process it's kind of lengthy and there's a lot of parts to it, and there's a lot of things that can be lost in the shuffle, if you will. That whole entire day class, I cover what each and every single document does and how you're supposed to go through it and fill it out, and how should you have people sign the quorum section. Where do you put your seal? How do you sign your name? Do you want to, put a red thumbprint on there? All these various different things that people get into, and some of the things you shouldn't do. Like, you should never sign or put underneath a signature line of one of the status docs, all rights reserved. You only ever sign that onto a document if you're being forced to sign something, basically under duress. Basically, what all rights reserved means is that you don't really mean anything by signing this. You're reserving all your rights. You're not waiving anything. You're not entering into contract. You're not declaring anything. It literally means you don't mean anything by signing it. And that's the last thing you want to do, signing your own status documents. You definitely want to stand firm on your status docs. I mean, the founding fathers didn't sign the Declaration of Independence, all rights reserved. They signed it because they meant it. It's important. And I see people screw that up all the time, with not just the VSOF process, but I see them screwed up all the time in their own paperwork, or for motions in the court and things of that ilk. The whole process. So first you get your status docs done. And like I said, I've got a whole class on it, so I'm not going to go into detail as to what each one of those documents is, because if you've decided to purchase the status doc process, I'm going to give you the link to the class anyway. But this is the mega folder for the handouts here in the outline. You guys can go take a look at the handbills. I'm sure most of you already have. The VSOF will create your entire status doc process for 21 1-ounce rounds of 99.99% silver, along with all the cover sheets that need to be filled out for them to be properly recorded onto the public record at your local county recorder's offices. The P.O. Box address to send the payment is located at the bottom of the VOS price sheet. Please be sure to secure your rounds firmly in the package so that they don't rattle around inside, because there's been a theft before from some postal worker that took rounds out of a non-secure box and then resealed the package, and basically to make it look like there was nothing wrong. And also make sure to get a tracking number and make sure to put the proper amount of insurance on the package. And then after that, you want to email us the tracking number at the VSOF email, which is vsof@protonmail.com. After you get your status docs done, you file your status docs properly onto the public record. They need to be filed in the correct order. Now, I went over this the other day in a free class, and I also went over it completely in the status docs class anyway. But there is an order specifically that they need to be filed in. It's number handout 2 in the class folder here. So let's open that up, and I'm just going to go through a very short description and the reason why these things have to be filed in the proper order. All right, so these things are a little bit color-coded. The purple ones are the docs that need to have the authenticated birth certificate attached to them. The document in green is the one that needs to have 12 other people to sign in order for it to be done properly. So 1 through 10 below are the Vocational Science of Freedom status docs that you need to have filled out. And the documents listed after number 10 are optional as to your situation. So we've got the name of the document down here in the left column, and in the right column is the description of the document, what it does for you, why you need to fill it out, well, fill it out and file it, and what is contained in the document, and what other docs are connected to it and why. Before you even do any of the status docs, the first 3 things you need to do to get ready to do any of this is to get your house seal made, get your birth certificate authenticated on the state level, and then you get it authenticated on the federal level. When it comes back from the feds, it'll have this interesting little block of a very heavy piece of, I want to say, it's not brown paper, it's more like a, kind of like a taupe. The authentication from the feds gets riveted, like they put a solid rivet all the way through the state authentication and through the birth certificate, so it cannot be removed. But I've seen and heard more than I've seen, but I have seen a few county clerks be stupid enough to try to remove it from it, to try to like tear it off. I've had to yell at one of them and say, "Stop! What are you doing? If you tear that off, that's a felony." And she looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, "That is a public record. Under the United States Code, if you damage, secret, or destroy a public record, it's a felony. Do you want me to call the Justice Department?" And she's like, "Well, no." I'm like, "Well, then don't rip it off of there." But anyway, when it comes back, it has a block of law in the lower left-hand corner of the authentication. Actually, you guys can go see what it looks like, because in the handbill section, in the mega link that I just gave you, I do believe that I have what I did was I made a Word document that looks exactly like what is on the authentication. I didn't do an actual scan of an authentication or somebody's authentication, because it would have their specific number up top, and I didn't want to give out anybody's personal information. So what I did was I just made a Word document that looks exactly the same way. And if you look down in the lower left-hand corner, there'll be this little block of law that'll say that this document is as good as the original, and that this document must be allowed to be brought forth as evidence in all courts in the United States. And there's some other law that's down in there too. There's some aspects with the Secretary of State's powers and a few other things. It's those 2 that are most important. The reason why they're most important is because your original birth certificate is sitting at the Depository Trust Company and Clearinghouse in 55 Water Street, New York, New York. And I can't substantiate any of this, but there have been stories that have come to me over the years about all of the different places that, and different government agencies, that your birth certificate goes through before it gets deposited in the DTCC. And it makes sense, because a long time ago, and this is probably over a decade ago, maybe 15 years, we were trying to do various different things with the birth certificate in Wisconsin when I was working with a group of people there. We were testing out these theories that people had about you can pay debt off with your birth certificate, or you can, all these other various different weird things. So anyway, we were trying all kinds of silly stuff one way or the other, not knowing if any of it would work. Basically, so we could just check it off the list and go, okay, that didn't work. A lot of the times that we were sending out the birth certificate, what would happen would be that they'd send it back with a letter. Every single time in the letter, and it didn't matter what agency that was sending the letter back to us with the BC, they all referred to the birth certificate as a check. "We are returning your check." And I thought, okay, I mean, this is not random, because And it must be correct because it came from 3 completely different governmental agencies, state and federal. This is not, just a Fed thing, not just a state thing. When we realized that, we're like, okay, they are calling this thing a check. And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, what do you do with a check? Well, you got to endorse it. I mean, if you want the funds out of it. Now, this brings me back to the DTCC and where the BC basically gets bounced around and through. Those stories, and again, I can't substantiate this part of it. The part about it being called a check, that was definitely letters. I mean, I saw that with my own eyes. What I've heard about the BC that's sitting at the DTCC is that it has routing numbers printed on the back side of it, which makes sense because if you ever have a checking account where you get your canceled checks back to you, what you'll see on the back side of each check, it'll have a routing number printed on it as to the places where the monies went through each bank. So when you put those 2 and 2 together, the stories about people saying, yeah, what the original BC has all these routing numbers on the back of it and blah, 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 of all the different governmental agencies that it went through to move the money around, move to this person, move to that person, move to this bank, move to that bank. And my guess is that it would probably go through the Federal Reserve and it would probably end up, United States Treasury and then probably in the IMF. I'm thinking, but that's just conjecture. Until we get one of these things back from the DTCC, we're never going to know. But to get one back from the DTCC is certainly something that we're working on and that we can do once we get the doc set done. Because once you get your doc set done, you have all the right in the world to demand to the DTCC anything you want regarding your property because you've claimed it. But now I'm going to get into each status doc and I'll show you guys where this is. Now, like I said, most of you guys probably know this, but this is for anybody who more or less wishes to buy this class at a later date and has not yet got their doc set done or is not a lifetime member and doesn't have my full hard drive. How do you get through this? So you get your seal made, get your birth certificate authenticated. You do your declaration, establishment and publication of house seal. This establishes your house in the public record and the seal thereof. It places a shadow of doubt on all other contracts that do not have your seal upon it and gives the opportunity to all who are served with this doc to rebut what is stated therein within 30 days or be bound to all that is declared therein, as is a continuation of your will. Every single one of the status documents is basically that. It's a continuation of your will or a execution of your will. Because what they're doing, what the whole system is based on, and I won't get into this too much in detail, what the whole entire system is based on is that they're running everything through probate. And I will show you guys a link that I put up. It's a 45-minute leaked Zoom call between a bunch of attorneys who are trying to fight a lawsuit that a bunch of people brought in St. Louis, Missouri, to basically bring down the entire filthy, corrupt, human trafficking, child family court system. The things that they say in there, they expose themselves because they're talking in amongst themselves. They never thought that this call would get leaked. I don't know who leaked it. I don't care. But it goes to show that they're all working with this together. It is their system. They want to control their system, and they never want to let it go. What they're doing is they're running everything through probate. As I said before, I have various different judges' manuals, one of them from Georgia, that specifically states that they're running traffic court through probate. So why would any court ever run traffic court through probate? It's because they are administering the estates, I should say abandoned estates, of infants, meaning foundlings, and a foundling is a lost or abandoned child of unknown parentage, that is also by pledge, through the birth certificate contract, been pledged to the corporate state. That's all any of these inferior courts are. That's all district courts are. All the state district courts, that's all they are. The only actual courts of record are the county courts. Some states will actually say or use the term superior court, but they're running everything through probate. So the house seal establishes your house and basically says, look, every single contract I've ever entered into, I can't confirm that I did it knowingly and willingly and with full consent unless it has my seal on it. You're just kind of covering your tracks, if you will, all the way back as far as you can go. The judicial coroner appointment, this establishes your judicial coroner of your house so that the judicial coroner can then convene a petit jury, which we then do the coroner proof of life and proof of age inquest. This is the one you need 12 people to sign. And this is a formal proceeding according to common law that proves on the public record in the record of your own court of record that you've been found to be living, have come of full age, as per the Magna Carta, Articles 3, 4, and 5, and that you are competent to handle your own affairs and are not an infant under 1 USC, which is United States Code, subsection 8, under definition of person, which you can see is they label you as an infant. Number 4 is the execution of will, declaration, and claim of title, which is what we call the BC claim. So this is the most important one that gets attached to the BC authentication when you get back from the feds, gets attached to this document. And it claims your estate by the highest claim of your birth certificate on the public record, so that all others must come forward and make a higher claim, or basically be stopped from any administration of that estate. So you're correcting it by your own will, which is important because what they've done is probated everybody's will. And then you have the executrix appointment. The reason why each one of these things has to be done in the proper order is that you have to establish your house seal before you can seal the rest of these documents. If I could have gotten away with it, I would have done the coroner proof of life and proof of age inquest first. But you do have to seal these. So I had to do the house seal first. Then you do the coroner appointment to rid yourself of these presumptions. Then you can start acting in the common law properly. That then allows you to claim your estate and appoint yourself as executor. And it allows you to rescind all powers of attorney over the estate and over you. And it allows you to establish a fee schedule, which is basically all the fees that you can then now charge anyone who administers your estate. And it allows you to put lawful claim of title on your estate and declaration of status and appoint trustees of your estate, which is what the kill warrant does, which is what this very long-winded document is. Lawful claim of title, will, execution of will, declaration of status, appointment of trustees, and standing orders for same. That's the whole title of that document. And this is the center document for all the rest of the status docs. It offers the office of trustee to all others, basically everybody else in the world that's not a member of your own house, and gives them the terms and conditions of that appointment and the means by which they agree to them with enforcement by binding arbitration or court of record proceedings. This will be the document that you will see today that has gotten multi-million-dollar arbitration awards against sitting judges. We are going to bankrupt their entire filthy system once and for all and end it. And we're going to do it lawfully. We don't have to use arms. We don't have to go crazy. What we're going to do is we're going to bankrupt every single one of them and say, nope, you owe us now more than you're worth. There's a maxim of law that says a man's life cannot have a price put on it. There's also other aspects of, or other maxims of law. Well, it's not a maxim law. The thing I was just thinking about was actually the Magna Carta. And the Magna Carta states that where matters of life and limb are concerned, they must be considered gratis and cannot be denied. So gratis means they must be granted. It comes down to the question, does your life depend on your estate? And the answer is yes. Your body is part of your estate. So could you live without your body? The answer is no. Therefore, the productive value that your body is capable of producing, right? You go to work or whatever you enjoy to do in this world to trade other people for your expertise and your abilities, that's your productive value. And what they've done, they've enslaved everyone and stolen that productive value from you, from your own body. That's why you're called a human resource. They see you as dead. Well, certainly dead to the law too, but they see you as nothing more than a slave resource. That's why they call you a human resource. And if you don't know this, the history of that particular term, you didn't used to see that term until like after the Second World War. Before that, companies, they had they were called personnel divisions, which even that gets a little creepy because that sounds military-ish, but they weren't called human resources, that's for sure. I mean, no company prior to 1933 had a human resource department that I know of. That term came in later, after they stole everything and basically made everybody dead to the law in 33. The kill warrant basically corrects all of that and says, look, it says, we've done all these things up here and established everything correctly. Now, if you come and administer my estate, then you have to put up a $300 million bond for potential fiduciary malfeasance of the administration of that estate. They continued to move forward after they were well aware and they'd been served with all these status docs. Now, I think in some cases, I don't know if Drew actually served the whole entire stack. I don't even think I had this whole entire stack done. I know I didn't have the proof of life and proof of age inquest done yet when Drew defaulted that judge in Colorado. So the point is, this document will kind of work almost on its own. But it does, by the common law, you do have to do all these things previously in order for it to be legitimate. I don't even give a damn if the stupid attorneys understand what we're doing or not. I know it's correct because I'm the one that's taken the time to go back hundreds and hundreds of years, sometimes thousands of years, to go back over the laws, common law and Roman civil law, to see where these things have come from and the reasons why they got established the way they did, and what was the remedy for these things back then, and how can we redo the remedy now and do it correctly. No attorney's going to go through that. They don't know. They don't care. They think you're crazy anyway because all they know is their system. You know, their schooling teaches them that the judge is an 800-pound gorilla, and if he screams, give him a banana. They don't understand anything about sovereignty or about law. Nothing. It falls to you to learn the history of law, which is, of course, why I did the totality of law class and why I also did the timeline class, because I have a timeline that I had to create just to keep in my own brain straight. All of the various different occurrences, events in the history of law and the history of banking and the history of nations, just to keep all the dates straight. Because I had to figure out what came before what and why. To figure out causal factors, you have to have some sort of a timeline. As well organized as I have my brain, I don't have that level of brain power to be able to remember all these things through thousands of years. Some people might be able to do that. I can't. So anyway, I put it all down in the timeline doc, and then I did a class for it so that people can fully understand why this entire status doc process has to be done the way it has to be done. And as I said the other day in roundtable, free open roundtable, I'm getting a little annoyed with people thinking that there's some sort of silver bullet to this. I always knew that there wasn't any silver bullet. Well, maybe for the first couple of years when I first started to learn law, I thought there may be. Then I realized that some people were even trying to make money off of other people by lying to them, saying that there was a silver bullet, and then realizing that, nope, that doesn't work. That's not a silver bullet. I realized that, okay, I'm going to have to learn everything that they're doing. And once I did that, then the entire status docs process and what we've done with it is the culmination of all of that information. And I'm not saying this to be egotistical, but lucky for anyone who's found me, because they don't have to take 25 years to figure this out. I did it for you. So, anyway, with that being said, okay, so after the kill warrant, then you do your declaration and oath of citizenship. This is important because under the Expatriation Act, which was, by the way, the Expatriation Act was passed just like a few days before the 14th Amendment. So at least back then, the attorneys did know what they were doing, and they knew that they were about to lie and basically force everybody into this second class of citizenship called citizen of the United States. And they gave the way out before that so that, well, basically so they could have a way out. They didn't want anybody else to pay attention to it because they didn't want anybody else to get out. But they had to give them an out, or else it would have been forced slavery, which of course people could have forcibly and lawfully rebelled against by deadly force and just, wiped everybody out, just wiped out DC. So they had to make it appear voluntary. And so when you read the Expatriation Act, it specifically refers to American citizenship, which is interesting because it's one of the few places that I've ever seen in governmental documents where it does say that. And it also refers to citizen of the United States. So it clearly shows that there are two different status that people can have, at least in the Expatriation Act. We wrote the Declaration and Oath of Citizenship based upon the Expatriation Act and a lot of other law. There's a lot of sections of law in the Declaration and Oath of Citizenship I did a lot of it, but actually most of it was done by Blue Star, who's one of the editors of the VSOF. Well, editor and scribe both, because he created this document pretty much on his own. And what I did was I just came back and kind of expanded on it, cleaned it up a little bit. Basically, what he did was he found every single either foundational document or other document that referred to the status of the people in some way, shape, or form. It was adding a lot of preambles. It was adding the Northwest Ordinance, because the Northwest Ordinance, it specifically says, we the people do such and such and this and that. The preamble of the federal Constitution, we the people here ordain and establish, yada, yada, yada. You can pull the preamble. I suggest that everybody does when they get it. They can put their own state's preamble in to the Declaration and Oath of Citizenship. And then, of course, we have the Expatriation Act and the 14th Amendment, and saying that even the 14th Amendment has never been lawfully ratified, which it hasn't. We still put the verbiage in there to tell them, hey, look, I know what you did, basically. In the end, what it is a clear layout of who you are and why. Because of the Expatriation Act, they have to accept the Declaration and Oath of Citizenship the way we wrote it. There's no way around it. By law, they have to accept it. We figured, okay, even though we had that all kind of done in the kill warrant and some of these other documents about who we are, such and such which, we figured, all right, let's just make sure that we put it down in a single document, so that if the question ever comes up, you can take this one single document, that's been recorded on the public record, go get a certified copy of it and give it to somebody. Like, give it to the passport agency, or, file it in one of these inferior courts that's trying to administer your estate. Be like, look, here's my status. It's already been recorded on the public record. And as per the Expatriation Act, you can't question it. So what jurisdiction do you possibly think you have over me? Because the answer is none. They don't have any. Anyway, so that's the Declaration of Oath and Citizenship. And then the last one is the Ordinance of the Estate, which is basically just a one-page document. What it does is it takes all of the rest of the status docs and puts their public record numbers in order onto this document and says, look, you're now having notice of all of the rest of the status docs. I won't go through the rest of the bottom of that stuff. This is all stuff that is, again, to your specific situation, like the will and the special master appointment and marshal appointment. These two get done if you have a court case that you got to do. The state passport application, we're wondering if this actually got stopped. Like, they're not allowing state passports anymore that don't have the social security number on them. Even the SS4 form, getting the estate EIN number, we're not exactly sure that they're continuing to do that either. But everyone that's gotten something back or sent that out needs to keep sending the letter back, or needs to, slightly alter the EIN or whatever they want, and remind them, because a few people have gotten the EIN, and the IRS said, well, the social security number is of the decedent is the same as the one who's supposedly the authorized representatives, and blah, blah, blah. Or they said that the decedent is the same as the authorized representative, and so therefore the decedent isn't dead. Well, no, that's not true, because this is, again, something you need to send back to the IRS if you get this kind of letter, is to say, well, it's labeled as being a decedent in the master file, so why don't you just go look up the master file? Because they're the ones that have it. Getting the estate EIN number might start requiring that we do a FOIA for the IRS master file first, so that we have the information, and then just turn around, and when they deny the EIN number, just point in the master file and go, nope, 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 nope. No, this is what your file says. It's a decedent. Give me the damn number. Because they know what we're doing. Well, and they know what they're doing too. So somebody higher up said, oh shit, when hundreds of people started sending in for their estate EIN, the 32 EIN, and they knew damn well that they weren't dead, and that proper executors were showing up to start to administer the estate, they all freaked out. I'm sure somebody high up in the IRS was like, oh God, they figured out what we're doing. It's not a requirement one way or the other. I'm not going to care one iota if the entire IRS gets, sinks to the bottom of the Gulf of Mexico in Puerto Rico, where it's, chartered out of anyway. I really don't care. I don't need them to operate, to have transactions. I don't need a filthy Luciferian number to trade with my fellow man. I simply don't need anything that they have. Now, Is it going to matter as far as being able to settle everything in the estate? No. Again, I don't think so. Would it be an easier way to do it? Yes, it would. Because once you get the 32 EIN number, then you can open up a bank account, and then you can say directly to like the DTCC and into Fidelity, look, here's the 32 EIN of that decedent. I'm the executor. Deposit everything into that account. And that would be the easiest way to do it. And that's probably what's freaking them out, because that was the direction we were going. We'll see. I mean, there are men that have their 32 EIN number, have their doc set done. So we're going to be poking around with Fidelity here pretty soon, and the DTCC, to figure out exactly what path that's going to lead to. So those are the status docs. Like I said, I don't want to take a tremendous amount of time because you guys pretty much know what they are anyway. So you fill out your status docs. You do not need to file your doc set into your birth county. It's probably, I don't want to say better if you file them into the birth county, because they're just as legitimate. I mean, if you filed each and every, I'm not suggesting you do this, but if you filed each and every one of your status docs in a different county, it wouldn't minimize their importance nor their validity one iota. I think it's just probably better to put your birth county on notice first, I guess is the way to put it. But if your birth county will not, say they're one of these sticklers that just won't file anything unless it's signed by an attorney or something like that. Well, there's ways to deal with people like that too, which is just call the sheriff's office and be like, she's denying me access to the public record. That's a violation of U.S. code. And I forget what it is. I think it's Title 18 USC, I think it's maybe 1342. But don't hold me to that. There are U.S. codes that say that if they don't allow you access, that's what it is. It's equivalent to secreting a public record. They can't do that. Even if it's your documents that you're filing. Technically, the second that you table them, meaning literally put them on the counter, once you say, I wish to have these filed onto public record, and you drop them onto the counter, technically, at that exact point, they are already filed. They're too stupid to know this. They think they can deny it, but they can't because they're just a public servant. Interesting story about that, actually. Years ago, when I was working with Tammy Pepperman, who, by the way, created the Executor doc, we were in somewhere in Indiana. Don't remember where exactly. And we were filing documents for myself, her, and a few other people. And anyway, there was a few people that went in prior to us filing ours. The county recorder was being basically a thief and said to one of the men that had filed a few days prior, was basically saying to them, oh, we don't know where that document went. We lost your document. Basically meaning that they weren't going to file it because probably a county attorney or a district attorney looked at it and was like, no, don't file that. Not that they have any right to deny it at all. And so then the next day, Tammy and I went in with that gentleman. He asked again, face to face, hey, where's my document? It should be filed. And they're like, well, we don't know where it is. And then Tammy just very quietly said, I wonder what the Office of Fraud and Waste would think about that. And the woman looked at Tammy, and Tammy was a short little thing. She looked at her and said, what did you say? And Tammy said, the Justice Department. And the clerk just did like a 180, not only in her brain, but she literally did a 180 standing there. She's like, I remember where his document is. Oh, it's right over here. Total thieving bitch. You can put the fear of God into them quite easily because the law is the law, and they want to pretend like they can get away with what they want to, and all you got to remind them of is the fact that no, you have a master. Not only am I one of your masters, but you have lower masters who will remove you from your job and put you in jail, as per U.S. code. So do what you're supposed to do. If you run into a clerk like that, you can basically squish them with those kind of things. And you don't have to be mean about it. You don't have to be overly bearing. Like I said, Tammy was like this little short thing, and she just said it very quietly. The Justice Department. And she just ran to go take care of that man's document, to go bring it back to him. That would have been destruction of a public record because he had a witness with him when he filed it. And so if they couldn't have produced it, that would have been destruction of a public record, which I think is all the same. If I remember right, under 18 USC, I think they're all the same punishment. I think it's a year in federal prison and $10,000 fine, I think, but don't hold me to that, for each offense. So after you get them recorded, I would, and if it's not in your birth county, what I would do is get a certified copy of them wherever you did get them filed at, and then take the certified copy to your birth county and say, okay, now record it. Because obviously this county didn't have a problem recording it, so you can't have a problem with it. And that should shut them up too, if you really want to make sure that it does get filed into your birth county. You can also do this by mail. You can accomplish it by filling out whatever request form that they have available. And if they do not have a form, simply find out how much they require to file the documents under the public record. And just walk in there and just get it done. And you'll want to file the doc set under miscellaneous or under wills. Every county recorder will have a list of categories that they file different kinds of records into, which is a really interesting thing to look at, because Blue Star and I told him about this and he's like, really? Or I said, yes, go down to the county recorder's office and ask them for their list of categories. They gave it to him, and they had the little I think they had it was a 2-letter or 3-letter system that was a short abbreviation for each one of the categories. And there were all kinds of categories. There were deeds, there were transfers, there were acknowledgments, there were wills, there was water rights stuff, there was mortgages, there was liens. They have this long list of these different categories. Well, if you want to make it easy on yourself to make sure that you get everything filed into your county recorder's office without there being some sort of issue with it, just procure that list before you go in, so you know exactly that they do have the specific category that you want filed into, and that you can even turn around and push their own paper back in their face and say, no, this is it right here. This is the category I want it in, and this is a printout from your office saying that this category exists, so this is where I want it filed. On demand. Because that's another thing you can say to them. You can say, file on demand. And technically they'll have this little stamp underneath their desk that they'll pull out. And they'll stamp it. And it'll say, file on demand. That means that the sovereign demanded it be filed. Because these little rats don't get one single bit of discretion as to what we want done. Our wish is the subject's command. That's how it works. Anything that you table, anything that you lay down on that counter, it's considered deposited. Okay, so you get the printout and you just figure out which code it is. Just make sure that you can put it into, and if nothing fits, tell them to file it under miscellaneous. It doesn't really matter. Wills is probably the best one you could file it under. You could also file it under judgments, because the proof of life and proof of age inquest is a judgment. Some counties will have estate paperwork or estate as a category. You could file them all into there. And technically you could file them all under deeds as well, except the land people might give you gruff about, well, this isn't a land deed. Well, no, but that's not a definition of a deed, woman. The definition of a deed is the thing done. Get them recorded however you can. And once they're recorded, then you can get a certified copy of them, along with the county recorder office number. And usually in the county recorder's office, what you'll get is you'll get a book and page number, and then you'll get a longer, sometimes 5 or 6 digit number, which is probably the number in order from the beginning of the year as to what document that is. Meaning there's been 13. Well, if you're in a big county, it might be 13,000. You might be, that your status doc might be number 13,522 or something like that. That number document that's been filed that year in that county. If you got a little dinky county, it might be, number 560, whatever. Of course, it depends what time of the year, early in the year or late in the year you go to. But they'll usually have a book and page number. You get that, get them filed, and then get a certified copy of all of them. It's funny. Blue Star actually went down with his wife when they went down to record. He went down there and the clerks were giving him an issue about filing fees. Because you're like, well, it's all this, and this is this, and it'll cost like $400 and something. Blah, 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 blah. And he said, no, you have to grant me access to public record. So anyway, this banter went back and forth. And then he called me. And what I didn't realize is that he had me on speakerphone. By this time, the actual clerk that was actually elected county clerk had come out from the back office. And Blue Star said he was dressed as an Orthodox Jew. I mean, the little squiggly, curly hair and the hat and everything, the whole thing. He said to me over the phone, and remember, I'm on speaker now. He said to me over the phone, they're saying that I gotta pay for this, that, or the next thing, and if I don't pay, then they won't file it. And what I said over the phone, again, not knowing that this Jew was listening to me, I said, demand from them that they produce the law upon which they rely to deny you access to the public record. And Blue Star said that the Jew tapped the under clerk on the shoulder and basically said to him, file whatever they want, no charge, and basically left the room. That just goes to show you that none of these filthy places can withhold access to the public record, because what they're doing is that they're acting as a for-profit corporation, and what they're trying to do is to get you to act as a customer. You're not a fucking customer. You're their sovereign when it comes to the access to the public record, which, yes, this little municipal corporation might be holding, but they do not have the right to deny. And that's a huge difference. And so we clearly showed that in that example that day. Oh, and to finish up that little story, him and his wife then, I think he asked for 5 certified copies of his entire doc set and his wife's entire doc set. They were sitting in that county recorder's office, I think he said, for something like 4 hours or something like that, while they ran all that stuff off and got him copies. And yeah, but, so just goes to show what you can do when you know the law. Okay, so that's recording. And yeah, you guys are finding all kinds of fun stuff, like the judgment website there that Ron's put up. Yeah, you can find, what you really want to do is go, whatever county you're dealing with, what you really want to do is go look up the rules and regulations of the county recorder of the state that you're dealing with. Because all these public offices, all these public offices, they all have these little handbooks that will tell them exactly what they can or can't do, or exactly what they need to do, and what they're bound by. And every single one of those little handbooks for them, every one of them regarding a clerk position, you can find the information that says that yes, they have to file what you give them, particularly file on demand kind of thing. And you'll probably even see that in their handbook. If a person demands that such be filed on demand, you must stamp it as such and acquiesce to the request. It'll state something like that. So just go find their handbook. Just lay out the law to them. Be like, nope, this is what your thing says, and you're bound by it. And then if they still get pissy, that's when you can start talking about the Justice Department and U.S. Code and whatnot.